Let's look at some Dynasty rookie rankings for Dynasty leagues, of course, and the rookies from the 2025 draft class. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I'm on live tally. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms, so hit the double bang. Listen on audio, watch on video, thumb it up, leave comments, subscribe. All that stuff is great. We're talking Dynasty rookie rankings. These are going to default towards category leagues. I will mention when there is a difference in points leagues, because I do have slight differences in the points league tiers. It's not gigantic, especially towards the back end of these players and these rankings. This will be split into two shows because we are going, I think, 70 something deep in these rankings, so it is going to be a little bit deeper than some rankings do. Others will go deeper than that. I had about 146 players overall on my list of rookies, but we're not going to go all the way down. And I'm only including guys who are either signed on two ways, got drafted, or have been signed on Exhibit 10 deals, not the guys just on strictly Summer League contracts at this point. So in this one, we're going to go all the way through until the end of Tier 5, and then the next show will be Tiers 1 through 4, which will be the top 20 players. So this is going to be like 76 through to 21 in this particular show. So let's get into talking about these guys. It is, I think I put this up already, International Mud Day. Shout out to Mark Grant. Let's talk about the rookies. Let's talk about the rookie class. Let's start at the back end. Again, in Dynasty leagues, I think the majority of you, when you're playing in Dynasty leagues, you're gonna want deep rosters. I said we went to 76. We're actually going to 87. My bad. You're gonna want deep rosters. I believe, the best setup of a Dynasty league, you need minimum 300 players rostered, probably 350. You want to have a rookie-specific draft. I don't like the idea of players that are in the NBA that then become part of this draft. Someone might have cut them due to contractual reasons or whatever. I think that should be a separate process. I think the rookie draft should be a rookie draft because that enables differences in terms of trading those picks during the season. That's how I believe that Dynasty leagues should be set up. If you're in a Dynasty league and it's a 12-team league with 13-man rosters, that's not really a Dynasty league. I think that's a really bad setting, and it leads to a bunch of striation in terms of how competitive the league is. Because some teams then lean into stashing players, and when you're stashing in a league that's 150 deep, you become uncompetitive, meaning there's like 3 teams that compete and everyone else is doing nothing. So I think you need depth, you need rookie-specific settings for Dynasty leagues, or any idea of like you've got a Dynasty league and you keep 2 players, it's just a redraft league. And this stuff doesn't really apply in these formats. Of course, when we get towards the end of these things, which is where I'm going to start in the 80s, the differences between these players can be quite marginal, right? In terms of we don't even know what sort of career they're going to have. It's probably nothing. A lot of these guys will have no career. And a lot of these guys we're talking about here weren't drafted, aren't even on 2-ways. They're on Exhibit 10 deals. But I want to cover them off just in case you're in a league that drafts deep. You have 60 players drafted, 80 players drafted, whatever in a rookie league. Just to show you where I'm at with these guys. So let's start off. At number 87, the last guy on my list, Augustas Marciulionis. Yes, that is his son. He did not sign with the Golden State Warriors. He went to the Lakers. He's a point guard on an Exhibit 10 deal. I'm not going to go through these guys in much detail. 86, Samson Johnson, a big man that signed with the Pacers, Exhibit 10. Number 85 is Eli Ndiaye, who's a center for the Hawks, a little bit undersized. I believe he is the first one of these guys that is actually on a 2-way deal. And then there's CJ Huntley at number 84, who went to the Suns. He's a big man, power forward. He's also on a 2-way. They are the Tier 14 players. Tier 13, I want to go with Andrew Carr at number 83 overall in Tier 13. Of course, the idea of a tier is if you're in the same tier as somebody else, it's relatively close between those guys. Andrew Carr is on Exhibit 10 with the Portland Trailblazers as a big man. Cliff Omarui is a big man who's gone to Toronto, a center. He's on an Exhibit 10 there as well. He's an interesting sort of a player. Could have had him a little bit higher, honestly, but he sits there. 81 is Cameron Matthews, a wing who went to the Rockets on an Exhibit 10. Number 80, a point guard, Lamont Butler, to the Atlanta Hawks. He's also on a two-way. So the Hawks signed Lamont Butler and Eli Ndiaye to two-way contracts. Number 79 is Grant Nelson, who went to the Brooklyn Nets. He's a big man. He was someone I went into quite a bit of detail in last year's draft. I think he transferred from, don't quote me exactly, North Dakota or North Dakota State, and he put up huge numbers, and then went to Alabama last season. He is an older player. I think if he was 3 years younger, he'd be much higher than this, but Grant Nelson, Exhibit 10 to the Brooklyn Nets. Hunter Dickinson's a million years old. He's, of course, probably mates with Troy Weaver's son, so therefore he signed a two-way with the Pelicans. He's relatively productive. I don't think he's going to be an NBA player, but the fact that he's on a two-way and had some productive college numbers puts him here at number 78 in tier number 13. The rest of tier number 13, another insanely old and productive college player in Caleb Love, the guard from Arizona. He went to the Portland Trailblazers. Miles Kelly on a two-way to the Dallas Mavericks. He's a wing. Number 75 to Atlanta on an Exhibit 10 as a wing is Kobe Johnson. And you know who his brother is? Yeah, he already plays for the Atlanta Hawks. Jalen Johnson. Kobe Johnson is Jalen Johnson's brother. Kobe Johnson played for UCLA. He's a wing. I've got him at 75 in tier 13. And then going to the Sixers on an Exhibit 10 is Igor Milicic Jr. to the Sixers. The Sixers did pretty well, I think, in their Exhibit 10 and Summer League deals. Here's another one that went to the Sixers. He's at number 73. This is the beginning of tier 12. This is a player that at one point, a few years ago, was considered like a top 10 prospect. And he sort of bounced around, I think, G League Ignite or Overtime Elite. Then he played down in Australia last season. Izan Ilamansa, big man, power forward, gone to the Sixers. Dylan Cardwell, a two-way guy to the Kings. He's a power forward. He's at 72 here in tier 12. Mark Sears, point guard from Alabama, I believe it was. He's with the Bucks. There might be an opportunity there. We'll see how that goes. Number 70 to the Bulls, a shooting guard. Caleb Grill, the barbecue. Number 69, Giggity Kadari Richmond, shooting guard to the Wizards. If he had have signed a two-way, I would have bumped him higher. I think I had him a little bit higher than that on my overall big board. The fact that he's only in Exhibit 10 is a little annoying. On a two-way, I would have liked it. And this is the first player now at number 68 here in Tier 12 that was actually drafted. He was drafted pretty late. It's Salio Niang, who went to the Cavs. He's a wing. I actually didn't have him as part of my initial big board. I added him about 3 days before the draft after doing some more research, so I'm glad I put him in there. There was actually one player who got drafted who I didn't have on my 140-player big board, which doesn't usually happen, but we'll talk about him a little bit later. So Salio Niang at number 68 in Tier 12. He went to the Cleveland Cavaliers. The rest of Tier 12 is number 67, Peyton Sanford, another guy that I detailed for the 2024 draft. He went back to school. He's a wing / power forward. He went to the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't believe that one's on a two-way. And the other one is to the Knicks, a wing, Dink Pate, who played in the G League this last season. Probably could have gone a little bit higher there. Thought he was a chance of getting drafted, but of course he didn't. So that pushes him down to this spot here. We're going to come back to get to Tier 11 next. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by FanDuel when summer sports are in full swing. That might be baseball. I've got a baseball game on here in the background. It might be going and watching golf. It might be soccer games. Whatever it is, FanDuel is the best way, WNBA. FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. So you're following the action, so why don't you make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach, the stupid idiots. With FanDuel, you track your favorite matchups, you keep it fresh on the app with the new daily promos and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, it's fast to pay out, and even the regular season games, they feel like must-watch events. And all those, also the same game parlays, or watching that bet right into the ninth innings with FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action. So if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, like I said, we are here doing Dynasty rankings. We've gone through from number 87 through to number 21 on this show. We've done the first few tiers, tier 14, 13, and tier 12. And now we get into tier 11, which I have a formula that I use for this to sort of tier these guys out and provide the value. And by the way, what I'm doing now is sort of a combination category points leagues. It's not specific to one. More of the designations will come when we get into the higher tiers where I start to specify if something's different. I have a formula that uses my overall draft big board a consensus big board amongst other analysts, either scouts or people with intel or people with analytic models. I use that number. I use the actual draft capital that the teams invested into it. I use the age of the player. I also use the fantasy translations from their college/international numbers and put all of that together to figure out how they look. Because of course in Dynasty, and you'll see this with some of the players, we're not looking at production immediately necessarily. We're looking at, well, that's a part of it. What can they do now? What can they do in 2 years? What can they do in 4 years? It's hard to get into your 6-7 years down the track, but we're trying to view this stuff for the 3 to 5 year window at least of where these players fit. And we'll see that with one of the guys in particular a little bit later on. Let's look at, we'll start this off with tier 11. Well, it started off, we'll resume it at tier 11. Number 65, another player who was drafted pretty late in the second round, going to the Knicks, Mohamed Diawara, a big man who is in the Knicks. Now, again, we don't know who the coach is in New York. We don't know how they're going to use their roster spots or their rotation. I don't think Diawara at pick, whatever he was, 56 or 52 or whatever it was in the draft, is going to have an impact. But we still don't know what the coach's idea is going to be. Jahmai Mashak went to the Grizzlies, a really interesting player who, again, wasn't initially on my big boards, but I did put him in towards the end after looking into him. Going to the Grizzlies, there are opportunities for someone in Memphis with his particular skill set as a defensive wing to really work his way in. We've seen guys like Jalen Wells and Vince Williams and these sort of players work their way into playing time because he's an older guy, Mashak, but didn't score very much, but a big steals guy, and we know steals is a very, very good translator for overall fantasy value, not just steals, but overall fantasy value. The other guy is a two-way player, shooting guard Tamar Bates. That's at number 63. He is in tier 11 at number 63. Now we start tier 10. Vlad Golden. I was a little bit surprised that Golden wasn't drafted, but immediately he signed a two-way with Miami Heat. He is a big man there, and of course Bam and Kal-El Ware are currently there, but the Heat have got an unbelievable track record of turning two-way players into rotation-level NBA players, so it's not going to be a one-for-one, always work-out type scenario, but we always want to pay attention to it. So I got Vlad Golden at 62. Hunter Salas, another one of these guys, like Peyton Sandford, like Grant Nelson, who I thought could have come out last season and even been on the fringes of being a first-round pick. They went back to school, they got their NIL money, and Salas didn't get drafted. But he did end up in Philadelphia on a two-way contract. Now, I don't expect that Philadelphia is going to be as bad as they were last season. That would be pretty foolish to predict that. But there is opportunities, clearly, because stuff went very much awry. And someone on the two-way last season, Justin Edwards, has now signed another long-term contract with the Sixers. So, again, Hunter Salas, a wing with something a little bit interesting to watch. RJ Lewis Jr., I didn't think that he would get drafted. He's an interesting-ish player. He's got the size profile. He ended up with a two-way with the Jazz. He's at number 60 here in tier 10. And then this is the guy, Taelon Peter, who I had never heard of this man. And he was drafted by the Indiana Pacers. It is worth just diving into a little bit of what Taelon Peter did. He was a shooting guard that played at Liberty. He's got a very sort of weird history. He's 23 years of age. He's 6'4". Honestly, he could easily, his stats are out of control. They are unbelievably good. His fantasy translations are crazy. The fact that he's that older size, he's like a 6'4" guard playing out of Liberty, and nobody had him really on any sort of board anywhere apart from the Pacers. He played 23 minutes a game for Liberty, and you go, okay, what the hell's going on? He shot 45% on threes on 50 attempts per game. He shot 58% overall. Reminder, he is a 6'4" two guard. He shot 58% from the field. He averaged almost a steal a game in 22 minutes. And he shot 78% from the line. The efficiency from him is ridiculous. I don't know that I buy it, but those numbers are insane. If he is able to actually be this level of a shooter, well, you've got something. I don't believe it. That's why I've only got him at 59, but he was in my top 140. So I had to put him in. He obviously got drafted. The numbers are crazy. Let's see where it goes. It's a lot of time on Taelon Peter, but he's a very interesting case. Number 58, a two-way player signed to the Lakers, and that's Eric Dixon. He is a wing, a shooting wing, an interesting sort of guy there as well. I think that they did well to grab him. I think I had him in the 40s on my big board. And then the final two guys in tier 10, we're looking at old Willie Dick himself, Will Richard at number 57 overall. Richard ended up with the Warriors. He's a shooting guard. He was drafted. And then Chucky Hepburn, who I thought should have been drafted out of Louisville, Point guard went up to the Raptors. I believe that he is on a two-way. Yeah, he's on a two-way up with the Raptors, and that is my tier 10. We're starting to get into the stage now where I'm going to starting to differentiate between points leagues and category leagues. I'm not 100% there yet. This is all very similar at this stage. We will get to that differentiation when it gets a little bit more pertinent. In tier 9, number 55 overall on these Dynasty rankings is Lachlan Albrick, one of the 4 Aussies drafted in the second round, which is the most we've ever had drafted. They were all like within about 10 picks of each other, it felt like. He's a big man. He went to the Chicago Bulls. Albrick, I've got him about a similar spot in points leagues. He will be on a two-way this season. I am shocked that Ryan Nembhard didn't get drafted, but again, you say that, and this happens all the time, and it happened again this season. Tim Connolly said this out loud at a press conference. He's like, the second round's a bit of a joke because agents are having all this power and they're telling you not to draft a player. They've got certain situations lined up, so it's very possible, much like an example of Trace Jackson-Davis a few years ago, Jalen Bridges last season going to Phoenix on his two-way because just said, don't draft me, I'm going to this team on a two-way. And I believe that could have happened with Nembhard here because guess what? The Mavs don't really have much in point guard depth for this season. Nembhard, one of the best passers in the entire draft. He might get minutes immediately. They weren't shy in using their two-ways last season, and teams shouldn't be shy in using their two-ways. So Ryan Nembhard to Dallas. The problem I have, I guess, longer term with him, where there's an opportunity immediately for Nembhard, is that like Kyrie will be back and you're not building around not Ryan Nembhard. But it is possible. Like if a team had have jumped in and grabbed him pick 32, like with Andrew, then it would have been, okay, someone's really investing here. But the fact that teams were willing to risk letting it go and play the agent game in terms of two ways, just sour a little bit there. Number 53, this guy was drafted as well. Jimmy Watkins to the Washington Wizards from Florida State. He's a 6'6" wing. He's a pretty good shooter. He's an interesting bet, but more of a guy that I don't know. I guess he's going to be okay. 31 usage player is really high, and that'll never happen in the NBA for him. I really like Max Schulger as a shooter. He goes to Boston, shooting guard there. I've got him at 52 in tier 9. Then number 51, a player that was drafted, is Kobe Sanders, who went to the Clippers. It was in that swap with Mohamed Diawara with the Knicks. Those two teams swap positions, and Sanders ends up going here. Now, I do have Sanders a little bit higher than this for points leagues. It's only slightly higher, but more the fact that he's in tier 8 versus tier 9 is a little bit different. I'm just going to look to see if anyone else I've got is from this group is a little bit higher. No one else I can see. So that's where we're at with those guys. We're going to come back to look at 50 through to 21. We'll get to that. This is, we're getting to the stage where most dynasty drafts are going to be picking some of these guys, and don't be afraid to draft players that weren't drafted. I'll say that, just because someone wasn't drafted and signs a 2A, don't be afraid to draft them in this area. So I probably should have just kept going with tier 9, because I've actually got 2 more guys here in tier 9. One of them is one of the other Aussies, Tyrese Proctor, who I also have in points leagues a little bit higher, up into tier 8. He's at number 50 here. He went to the Cavs. Now, the Cavs just today traded for Lonzo Ball, trading away Isaac Okoro, which I know Lonzo's been injured, but he's so much better than Isaac Okoro. The Bulls have done it again. They just refuse to get anything back in terms of draft picks or anything. I don't know what they're doing. Anyway, Tyrese Proctor, it looks like Ty Jerome is done in Cleveland. It looks like someone's going to sign him, and Cavs aren't going to match that price because they bring in Lonzo. They drafted Proctor. So Tyrese is not going to do much immediately, but the fact that he is there, Lonzo's there, Craig Porter's there, it's a little messy. 59 goes up to Toronto, a guard, a very good defensive guard. Elijah Martin goes up there. So he's one of those guys. I still have him in tier 8, but he's a bit of a lower player for points leagues versus category leagues. Now we can go to tier 8. At number 48, the beginning of tier 8 is John Tonje, who went to the Utah Jazz. He is an older player. He's 24 years of age. He's just a standard sort of older wing player who I think is going to be interesting on that squad. There's clearly opportunities for small forward size players on the Jazz. He's 6'6". He shot a 65% true shooting last season. I don't know that he's going to do a huge amount there, but I've got him at that spot. Rocco Zakarsky really struggled in the NBL last season, another one of the Aussies. He's at 47. He's going to the Timberwolves on a two-way. Now, finding minutes in Minnesota with Naz Reid on that insane extension, I think it's insane. I don't think he's worth, especially 5 years, $125 million. Rudy Gobert is there. They drafted Jan Berenger in the first round. There's a chance that Zakarsky ends up a better player than Berenger. He's huge, Rocco. He just really struggled last season. This is a developmental spot. It makes it hard when all their developmental spots is like Leonard Miller and Josh Minot and Berenger now. So I'm not really sure where Zakarsky goes in terms of that, but I've got him there. And in terms of where Zakarsky sits in points leagues, he's actually higher, up to tier 7 for me. Kobe Bryant to the Phoenix Suns. He's a shooting guard from Kentucky. I've got him at 46 overall. He is still in my tier 8, one of the many, many Kobe's in this draft. There's like 3 of them. He sort of sits about this area. He's probably a little higher in points leagues in my tier 7. 45 is Micah Peavy, who went to the New Orleans Pelicans. I've got him lower in points leagues and in category leagues. And then at number 44, a center, Kentucky, Amari Williams, who again, I've got probably about the same spot actually in points leagues versus category leagues. Williams, one of those guys, the Kentucky, we always see these random players coming out of Kentucky. He's an older guy. He's 7 foot, but really insane assist numbers, like almost 2 blocks and 5 assists per 36 minutes playing for Kentucky. Not really a stretch guy, but really strong passing numbers. So that's something to watch for a Boston team that traded away a center and could lose a couple more, and is really in developmental mode. So, or not developmental mode, sort of a reset mode. So we just need to pay a little bit of attention to someone like Amari Williams and see what. I don't believe it's been announced what contract he's got just yet. At number 43, still in tier 8. This is one of the guys that I did go into depth with on the show at one point. It is at number 43 here in tier 8. I'll put his little profile up. Chaz Lanier, if it eventually actually works for you. I guess it'll work at some point. Maybe not. I guess so. Yep, that was really slow. Don't know what happened there. Chaz Lanier, an older guard, but someone with really, really interesting shooting ability, I think. 40% on threes, incredibly high volume. Didn't do a huge amount else on this Tennessee team, but as a guy that, like, they're probably re-signing Malik Beasley, but they could lose Dennis Schroeder. Don't know what's happening with Tim Hardaway. Marcus Sass is around, but I'm not really sure he's any good. So Lanier is just an interesting bet, I think. And I think he could work his way into being a rotation player somewhere in the NBA. I like the Pistons taking that chance on him. At number 42, it's another Aussie, Alex Tui, who goes to the Warriors. Sort of a small forward, probably can play up at the 4 a little bit. A solid athlete, a guy that I thought had a chance to be a first-round guy at the start of the cycle, but wasn't quite there. Could easily develop into a rotation player. And the other one is Brooks Barnheiser, who went to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Really like him as a rotation wing player. He's on a 2-way. Could easily get converted at the end of the season, but the Thunder have got a lot of roster crunch spots. We've got to see what they do. He's a name to watch that's probably not going to do a huge amount early on, Barnheiser, but a guy that I think is pretty interesting. I do have him higher in category leagues than I do have him in points leagues. Next up, we go into tier 7. This is Charlotte with number 40, Sion James from Duke. Probably similar in points leagues or category leagues. He shot well from 3, but it's more of a lower volume guy. He's a defensive wing. There is some stuff there that translates okay for fantasy. We're going to need to see that shot really start to be a weapon to get enough minutes, but if it does, then there is something there for James. At number 39, this was the last pick of the first round, Yannick Conan Niederhauser. There's some of his advanced stats which I really do not like, so I'm not super high on him. That is why he sits down here despite being a first-round pick. And then you've got Will Riley, the shooting guard who went to the Wizards, who also I hated as a prospect. He's really tall as a shooting guard, but didn't shoot particularly well, unbelievably low steal rate, and just players with a steal rate that low, it was like 0.4 steals per 36, which is, it's unfathomably low. Just hardly anybody has success in the NBA with that. It doesn't, not even defensively, just in general. It's just a horrible number. So I'm so out on Will Riley. We'll see where it goes. There's a lot of guys in Washington as well. Trey Johnson, CJ McCollum, Marcus Smart, Chris Middleton, they're not long-term, obviously, but Bob Carrington, Keyshawn George, I don't really get it with Will Riley. But, I put him here because draft capital means something. 37, Javon Small, who was a second-round pick, but someone that I liked as a prospect myself. So he went at pick 48. He's 6'2". He's not particularly big, but I like his defensive mentality. And then at number 36, we've got Hugo Gonzalez, the Real Madrid point guard / wing, I guess. So the Celtics took him at the end of the first round. It was pick 28. Gonzalez went. I don't know that he's coming over. I believe that he is. He's not going to get many minutes on this team. There's guys like Jordan Walsh that'll get an opportunity. There's Baylor Shireman who'll get opportunities. He was a very highly decorated youth player, Gonzalez, but playing on that Real Madrid team, he just didn't get many opportunities. He didn't shoot well. He's, again, one of those sort of bigger sized wing point guard type point forwards that do seem to be pretty prevalent across in Europe. We go to the rest of Tier 7 now. At number 35, one of the Nets' million picks, Drake Powell comes in there. His stats are not particularly enticing. The guy at 34, though, his stats are pretty enticing, and that is Cam Jones, who point guard. He played point guard last season for Marquette, but played shooting guard in the past, and the Pacers are going to need guard play, obviously, because Tyrese Halliburton's out. I'm not suggesting that Cam Jones is going to be a starter, but there's Ben Shepherd, there's Ben Mathurin, there's Andrew Nembhard, and there's TJ McConnell, obviously. But having someone like Jones, who's got an ability to switch between positions, I think he's going to be a better shooter than the numbers showed last season. His passing ability sort of just blossomed when he was put into that role last year. That the Pacers aren't afraid to use guys. Ben Shepherd, TJ McConnell, and obviously Andrew Nembhard were not high picks. Some of them were undrafted, and they're key rotation pieces. So Cam Jones at number 34 there. I'm intrigued to see it, and I like the spot where he fell in this draft. And the last one is Jonah Broome, center from Auburn, going to Philadelphia. Now, Adem Bona is there. I like Bona more than Broome. And, of course, Andre Drummond picked up his player option. That's not a long-term thing. And Joel Embiid is there. But Embiid and Drummond, who knows? And then you got Bona and Broome. Good spot for him. And that's why I've got him at 33. And some of his translation stats out of college, Broome, I should put the screen back across. Some of Broome's translation numbers are incredibly interesting. So we will see, if any of that comes to light. Now we're getting into a lot of the guys drafted first round, or what I considered first round level players. This is the beginning of tier 6. At number 32, I was tempted to knock this guy down a little bit because he's playing for the Bucks, but at some point, the Bucks are going to be different because Glenn Rivers will be gone. Giannis may not be there, Dame Lillard won't be there, and they won't just be incredibly hateful to young players. We saw what happened with Tyler Smith last season. Someone I had really high just doesn't play. And this will probably happen with Markovic this season. No idea whether Bogey comes over for this season, but he's a tall, I think he could shoot a little bit, good rebounder, good passing, big man, 6'11". Cool. Not going to do very much this season. The one that I've got here that I think you might have issue with at number 31 on these Dynasty rookie tiers is Ryan Kalkbrenner. And the reason why is that I think Kalkbrenner might have a chance of being draftable in redraft leagues this season, because Yusuf Nurkic and Moussa Diabate are the centers in Charlotte. Kalkbrenner, incredibly good rim protector. There's a lot of value, maybe. But long-term, I don't think that Kalkbrenner is a long-term NBA starting center. I think it might be something where he gets a chance this season and then you look to do something and he upgraded in the year after or something like that. So my long-term outlook on him as an older prospect is not particularly high. But for this season, he could sneak in and be like, yeah, that's an interesting sort of a player, and then fade away. That's why I've got him there. At number 30 is Noah Pender. I thought Pender had a chance to be a first-round pick. Wing from France, one of the 6 French guys, I think, that was drafted, and so many of them are the same sort of size type of player. Pender could do a little bit of everything. He's probably not going to be doing a huge amount for Orlando this season, but the assist numbers, the steal numbers, the block numbers, the shooting is okay. He's not a particularly high usage guy, but always take the usage numbers from Europe into context in terms of what team they're playing on and the strength of that team overall. So I got Pender overall at number 30. Have a look at where Noah Pender lies on my points league rankings. He's at 30 also, so literally exactly the same spot. Number 29 is Maxime Reynaud, who played at Stanford last season. He goes to Sacramento in the second round, but I do think the skill set is incredibly useful. I don't know how long Valanciunas is on the team. Honestly, I don't know how long Sabonis is on the team, whether they end up trading him away or whatever ends up happening. Reynaud, I think, can be a starting center, and I would have loved if Reynaud went, say, in Kalkbrenner's spot, even in Charlotte. I think Reynaud has that ability as a stretch, let's say a Miles Turner-y player. Worse shooter, worse shot blocker, much worse shot blocker, but interesting enough, right? So I do like Reynaud. And then at number 28, a player, again, that was a second-round pick who was traded up for by the Los Angeles Lakers, Adu Thero. Now, he is not going to play. Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, they're all there. Dorian Finney-Smith probably comes back. Thero is 21. He's a little bit older, but high usage player who didn't shoot well, but incredible defensive numbers. Think, again, my best case for him is OG Anunoby. And this sort of a player, if it hits really well. And I think he's going to have that ability to improve the shooting, pass a little bit, rebound a little bit, steal, block, score, usage ramp. It's all there. It's a longer term investment, but I like the team that he went to. I like playing alongside Luka Doncic as well. He's probably a little bit lower for points leagues and category leagues. The rest of tier 6, we've got here at number 27, Ben Saraf, who went across to the Brooklyn Nets as one of their million tall point guards who can't shoot. So he just fits that bill perfectly. He played in Europe, but on a team that does prioritize the young guys. Rasheer Fleming. Saraf shot horribly, as all these Brooklyn guys did, 29% from 3. He averaged almost 7 assists and 2 steals per 36 minutes, so there is appeal in that. The worry there, of course, is just all of the other guys playing a similar position, plus the lack of shooting. So Saraf does have okay fantasy translation ability. That usage number's a little bit skewed because of the system and the way that Rasheer Fleming uses their young guys versus some of the other teams. But yeah, he's a first-round player that it's in a weird-ish spot, but I don't mind him there. The rest of tier 6 is number 26, Liam McNeely, number 29 pick overall from the Charlotte Hornets. Didn't shoot well last season, but I don't think that means he's going to be a bad shooter as we move forward. I think he'll actually be a pretty solid shooter. That'll take us through to the final tier that we're doing on this show, tier 5. And that takes us all the way through from 25 through to 21. Number 25 is Danny Wolf, another point guard who's more of a center. He does really need to be maximized with the right sort of players around him, and maybe that doesn't happen. But there is an incredibly good fantasy skill set there. Now, the chances of hitting are low. But when we're talking about being in this area of a draft, someone who's got that ability to really put up weird numbers, which Wolf does, rebounding, assists, some threes, some scoring, some field goal percentage, like his free throws are horrific, he's intriguing enough to me there. Number 24, again, another older player, Nick Clifford, to the Sacramento Kings. You'd love the positional value of Nick, his ability to have usage, to shoot, to defend, and to pass, depending on what is needed, is key. Now, obviously, he's behind DeRozan. He's not a long-term guy for the Kings. He can play alongside Keegan Murray. They might be clearing out someone like Malik Monk. He can play like, you could easily see a Levine, Clifford, Murray, 2, 3, 4 in the future. He could also just be a nothing. The shot might not translate. He might be a lost player on offense. He might be someone who beat up on younger players in college. That is definitely possible. But Clifford's got a pretty interesting sort of a skill set that deserves some of our attention. Next at number 23 is young Hansen, who was a shock to me going at pick 16. And I did mention something wrong when I talked about the draft recap the other day, saying how I didn't love Portland's draft. I said they got 3 second-round picks from the Grizzlies. I was wrong. They actually got a unprotected first-round pick. Now, that is the Magic's unprotected first-round pick, which probably is going to be in the 20s. So they did a lot better in that trade than I initially said, because I was getting the 3 second-round picks part of it confused with another deal. So that's my bad on that. I still don't like them picking Yang at pick number 16. He's not going to play very much early on. He does have an intriguing skill set with pretty high assist numbers and high block numbers, but it is hard to judge. That Chinese league is horrible. And he was Defensive Player of the Year. It doesn't really mean much, but he wasn't the best player in the league. He wasn't the best player on his team. He's 20 years of age. He's fine. Like Chinese Jokic, get that. I'm never saying that again. That is a horrible nickname to put onto somebody. He's not that. It's not going to be that. It's not going to happen. Don't worry about it. He is so far down the depth chart already, and it's very possible to me he never develops into anything close to a starter. But there is some rebounding skill. There is some offensive skill as well. And the passing's fine. I just think that he might be a real defensive problem, despite winning Defensive Player of the Year in that league. So I've got Young at number 23. I'm just going to check what his points league value sits at. Oh, it's actually at 23 as well. So literally exactly the same. Number 22 is Walter Clayton Jr. The Jazz, this is where I got confused with all those second-round picks. They gave up all those second-round picks to move up to get Walter Clayton Jr., who is... I love his shooting ability. His shooting ability is great. He's now with Utah where there is a million guards. We know that. They will all clear out. Not a problem there. Like Clarkson, Sexton, they're not going to be there long term. You've got Collier, you've got George. Who knows what their future is? Clayton is older. I believe he's older than Collier and George. but a really good shooter coming out of Florida. I'm just going to check I've got his points league value at a similar spot as well. Yep, so in that same area. I don't know how much he plays early on. I think there is some interesting stuff with his assist numbers, and steals could be okay, but he's a little on the undersized side. And these sort of older point guards who have that success in college don't usually translate particularly well. We keep an eye on it, but I've got him there. And then the last guy I'm going to talk about on this show is number 21, and that is Rasheer Fleming. And this is part of the reason why I was really impressed with what the Suns did in the draft. Not only you had them taking Kaman Malawach, which was a strong pick, and Kobe Bryant, but trading up to get Fleming at the top of the second round. I thought Fleming could have easily been picked in the 20s. Honestly, at one point I had him in the teens in this draft. He's got incredibly interesting fantasy translation numbers as well. Now, he's not as good for points leagues as category leagues, but steals, blocks, threes, rebounds. He shot the ball well. His free throws are okay. He wasn't yes, he was playing for a bad team, St. Joe's, and against not necessarily strong competition, but wasn't like he was running at 28 usage and dominating there. Like the steals, the blocks, the rebounds, the threes are all an incredibly good fantasy package. And your competition at power forward is Ryan Dunn, who's probably more of a 3. He could be much higher than this. The reason that I've got him at 21 is the fact that he went in at number 31 in the draft, so the second round pick, you knock a little bit off the top there, and teams tend to have less grace for a second round pick versus a first round pick, but pick 31 is the highest you can get in the second round, and Rasheer Fleming is a really, really interesting player with an incredibly good skill set and someone that I had high in my draft board. So he jumps up versus his regular NBA draft slot up from 31 to 21 on my Dynasty rookie ranks. That's it. That's 87 through to 21. So the next show we do will be 20 through to 1, and we'll go into those guys a little bit more detail, and we'll talk about the differences in categories and points more specifically for those top 20 guys. The best way you know when that show drops is by subscribing, whether that's audio or video, but more importantly, it's both. Do that, and guys, we're done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.